Above the Roof, the Colorado Family Roofing Podcast, hosted by Brandi Babin and Brian Barnes. We're the fastest growing roofing company in Northern Colorado, so we're talking about raw and real struggles and successes and topics that homeowners need to know about the home service industry. Welcome to the Above the Roof Podcast. I'm your host, Brandi Babin, and Brian Barnes is here. We're going to talk about one of your mess ups, right?
One of my most expensive mess ups.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear about this. I haven't heard the full story.
So when I was building the company, obviously it was just me, and so I was the project manager, the salesman, everything. Literally everything. It was a one-man show. So the biggest mess up, I sold actually the biggest job that I had ever sold, and I think this is probably 7 or 8 months into the business.
Okay.
For reference. And it was a huge roof. So 50 squares, which is like 5,000 square feet, which is, just to reference, the average home is like 2,200 square feet or somewhere around there. So about twice as large as your average house. Yeah. Big roof, very nice house, beautiful out in the country. So I get there on production day. Everything's going smooth. I hop up on the roof and I take the photos of the shingles like I always do, and everything looks good. The crew's there and they're tearing off and they're going pretty quick, normal pace. But I hop down and go talk to the homeowner, say hi, and everything's going well. And then I head out to get the guys burritos, because we buy our guys breakfast every morning. But it was out in the boonies. So, it was beautiful, beautiful day. I just take my time driving through the countryside, grab some burritos. Everything's going smooth. So I'm just happy as can be, this big old roof. When I get back, which was only couldn't have been more than an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Somehow the guys just had the biggest giddy up they've ever had. And they had the whole thing torn off, and they were actually a third of the way up roofing. And I'm like, wow, these guys are hauling today. And so I'm just kind of enjoying my coffee and eating my burrito, and I'm looking at the roof, and I'm just like, well, that's pewter gray shingle. I'm pretty sure they had ordered driftwood.
Oh no, that's not even close.
Not even close. And so the first time this had ever happened, I'm like, this can't be possible. Let me check the notes. So I start getting these butterflies in my stomach, and I'm checking through the notes, and I'm like, please be pewter gray. Please be pewter gray. Sure enough, I look, and on my color consultation sheet, it says driftwood. And so I'm starting to freak out a little bit. I'm going through my mind, the first thing that you always do when you make a mistake, I think, is human nature, is you start like, what excuse can I come up with to tell this homeowner?
Yeah.
And then your rational mind's kind of like, Brian, you're a business owner. You're going to have to just swallow your pride, tell them you screwed up, there's no hiding this whatsoever.
Yeah.
I go knock on the door, and the lady, which great lady, really good client. I say, look, good news and bad news. Everything's going well with the roof. Bad news is we put the wrong color on. And so she's just like, oh no. And so I was trying to gauge her response. And how bad. And
will she still be okay with pewter?
Yeah.
Pewter gray. I say pewter gray, and Brian hates it. He's like, it's pewter. It's not pewter.
That's a whole nother topic, different podcast.
Yeah.
But so she's visibly upset, because some people just don't care. They're like, you pick the shingle color.
Yeah,
but she was very, she's like, oh, this is not good. So she goes out and she looks at it, and she's like, well, I don't hate it. I don't love it. The biggest problem is my HOA.
Oh.
Because we had it approved. So we hop in her car. We drive down to the HOA president's house.
Yeah.
I tell him what happened. She's like, Brian, you're talking to him because these guys are stringent. She's like, you have to come. So I hop in her car. We go to talk to the HOA president. He's like, oh, that's not good. So he drives down to the house with us, looks at it, and he's like, you know what? I think it's okay as long as you roof your barn the same color.
Okay. So
now I'm like, okay, well, we weren't planning on doing the barn, but not as bad as tearing the whole thing off.
Yeah. And
so I'm talking to the lady. I'm like, are you sure? Because we're a third of the way up. It's going to be much cheaper for me to tear this off and redo it the right way.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's okay. HOA approved it. Like, go ahead and finish. I'm just going to need you to re-roof the barn the same color. And so now I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, that's, it's about a $4,000 mistake, but manageable.
Yeah.
Because it's a big roof. And like, so we're sitting close to like break even, which is like, oh, okay. So we finished the roofing. Husband comes home that night, about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. My phone rings. And it's her husband. And he says, Brian, my wife told me the whole story. I know exactly what she told you. And I want you to know I'm not okay with it. And I'm going to need you to change this to the right color.
Woo!
And so now I'm in this predicament because I have the wife and the husband. They didn't communicate about the issue.
Yeah.
And she told me to finish. He told me it's not okay. First big problem I've ever had in the business.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through my mind like, okay, what is the fair outcome? Because when I started, I said, no matter what happens, I'm going to make sure that we do the right thing and the fair thing.
Right.
And so in my mind, the fair thing would not be to re-roof the entire thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to put myself in the husband's perspective where he bought a roof. I made the mistake, regardless of what the wife told me. I should have made sure that she confirmed that with the husband. So now I'm playing a little bit of marriage counselor in my head as well.
Yeah.
So to make a very long and painful story shorter, we negotiate back and forth with the husband, and he ended up saying, like, look, re-roof the barn the same color and paint my whole house.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't like the way that it mismatches.
Oh.
I was like, well, that's a fair solution. Okay. So we ended up painting the house, $8,000 because it was a very big house.
Yeah.
And re-roofing the barn, which is another $4,000. So that was a $12,000 lesson that I learned 7 months into the business, which at that point took us down to, any profit that we had made for that year, we were back at square one. So back to packing my lunch, for a while.
Right.
However, I have never made that mistake again.
That's true. The most painful mistakes you learn, they're really in the forefront of your mind for the rest of your life.
Yes. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I have ordered the wrong color before, but I caught it before it went on the roof. So yay me.
Oh, well, there you go.
And I didn't tell you. Just kidding.
Hey, but
no,
you
I
caught
don't
it.
remember if I told you or not.
Yeah. I think I remember that. Yeah. And, I guess the lesson is to contractors is always check your materials the day of the build.
Right.
And that's part of our process now, which was part of my process. That's why I took a picture of the shingles. I just didn't look. I was just on autopilot and I didn't look to see the pewter gray words and just snapped the photo. I'm like, we're good. I snapped it.
That's funny.
Attention to details. Smooth is slow. Slow is smooth.
Smooth is fast. That's right.
And also remember when you're talking to one spouse, there's another side of that equation.
Yeah, I could see how the husband might have been like, well, you took advantage of her sweet nature and to fix your mistake, you just made her agree with you, which is not what you intended to do. But I could see how that viewpoint would come up.
100%. And I think the reason why I was able to put myself in his shoes is because my wife is very sweet. And if I were to come home and it was the wrong color, and at that point, like he's like, my wife is in tears. She regrets the decision that she made.
Gotcha.
We don't like how it matches. And so I'm just like, all right, I understand where you're coming from. And I think that's really the key takeaway for business owners is to really put yourself in their shoes because people by nature, I think, want to be fair.
Yeah.
They want to do the right thing. There's very, very few people. There are a few, very small population that will just take advantage of people.
Right.
But in my experience, for the most part, people are good. And I think if you have that assumption, you can usually come up with a reasonable solution to your problems.
That's true. We have a fun episode planned where we talk about that small percent.
Yeah, that's a good.
That'll be a
that's
good
a juicy one.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I think that's a great story for today, and we're gonna hit you guys with more stories and how we handled it. And so this is our very first episode. Ooh, 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 ooh. All right. Stay tuned for more from Above the Roof with Colorado Family Roofing. I'm Brandi signing off.
See you next time. I'm Brian.